Whether you believe it or not, the Earth is covered with lots of mysteries that extend much deeper than you could imagine. Besides the awe that comes with the discoveries of some of these mysteries, the truth they reveal is worth going in for. Join us as we have a look at 15 strangest things found in caves that change everything. Number 1. A 175,000-year-old mysterious fire-scorched rings of stalagmites. To get your feet wet, we'll first talk about these stalagmite rings that date back 175,000 years and were charred by a fire at a depth of 1,100 feet. They would be found in a subterranean cave in southern France, and contrary to a few misconceptions, this archaeological find has profoundly changed our understanding of Neanderthal civilization, as it led experts to the conclusion that Neanderthals actually built intricate subterranean structures. One of the important things of these findings is that it was the first discovery that provided information on Neanderthals' aptitude for construction. The cave site lies in southern France, around 30 miles from Toulouse. In all, approximately 400 stalagmites were discovered and carefully placed to form the walls of 2 circles. It took years for researchers to finally discover these structures after the cave was first found in 1992. One of the rings was a complete circle with a 7-foot diameter, and the other was an oval with dimensions of around 15 feet broad by 22 feet long. The rings were fired, but the exact cause of the fire is a complete mystery. However, the discovery completely alters how anthropologists thought about Neanderthal builders. It turns out that these early people did produce intricate structures, contrary to what was previously believed. Number 2. Cheddar Man. Now, next up, we have an intriguing discovery of a 9,000-year-old plus skeleton that was found in a cave in Cheddar, England in 1903. To everyone's surprise, 300 generations later, a history teacher was identified as the deceased's relative about a half-mile away. The skeleton is currently the world's truest verified relative. The DNA of 42-year-old history teacher Adrian Target is said to have matched that of the 9,000-year-old plus Cheddar Man. More interestingly, this skeleton was the oldest complete that was ever discovered in England. Long before agriculture was even developed into what we have today, around 7000 BCE, there were hunter-gatherers, and these hunters were tested. They tested 20 residents who had family who had only been known to have lived in the area for many generations. The DNA analysis would be carried out by the Institute of Molar Medicine at Oxford University, and it was after the DNA test was undertaken that the bombshell surfaced. The skeleton was first uncovered 20 meters below a cave in Cheddar Gorge, the country's premier Paleolithic human discovery location. This discovery created such room for researchers to gather some information regarding the beginning of early humans' agricultural lives. Contrary to the notion that farmers migrated into Western Europe from Eastern Europe, the remains would strongly suggest that farming spread throughout the population. Number 3. Altamura Man. In a sinkhole in the Lama Lunga caves of Italy, the skeleton of a 170,000-year-old individual known as the Altamura Man would be discovered in 1993. It was the oldest portion of the Neanderthal skeleton from which DNA could be extracted. However, it was left on the scene to prevent further harm because it was lodged in a cave rock, covered in a thick layer of calcite, and had a broken-up cranium. According to researchers, the Neanderthal man skeleton discovered in an Italian cave was not just the oldest known sample of early human DNA. Still, it might actually paint a complete picture of Neanderthal life. According to one study of paleontologists, the skeleton discovered in this cave was the most comprehensive non-human skeleton ever found. However, there was a problem initially when it was first discovered. The skull was fixed in stalactites and stalagmites, so it was difficult to examine, even if it was uninjured. Consequently, determining whether or not it genuinely belonged to a Neanderthal was difficult, but the light shone on the dark path when the scientists were able to extract DNA from the right shoulder blade. This made their discovery ultimately achievable, and following this, the Journal of Human Evolution published the findings specifics in March of 2015. Number 4. Ancient Cave System. There are many different types of scary cave systems, ranging from lonely caves that are billions of years old to 19th century mines. We can now make better decisions about the energy and minerals on our planet that are hidden in caves thanks to a solid understanding of Earth science. Without a doubt, cave systems have been in existence for a long time, and as a matter of fact, as far back as 1999, geologists predicted the caverns could be 90 to 100 million years old. Senior lecturer at Sydney University, Dr. Armstrong Osborne, had always assumed the caverns were older. Therefore, he was intrigued to learn that they date back to 290 to 354 million years ago. For reference, the Blue Mountains started to form 100 million years ago, and dinosaurs became extinct 65 million years ago, and Tasmania has only connected to the continent 10,000 years ago. However, one of the oldest known caves in the world is the Jenolan Cave, dating back as far as 340 million years ago. When researchers revealed in 2006 that Jenolan Caves were the oldest cave system ever found, a lot of people were astounded. Researchers from Cesaro, the University of Sydney, and the Australian Museum demonstrated that Jenolan Caves had been around and altered for at least 340 million years in a study that would be published in the June issue of the Australian Journal of Earth Sciences. There are a plethora of reasons why people would visit Jenolan Caves, including the sense of adventure, the wonders of the natural environment, the mysteries that the caverns hold, the wildlife, its odd history, overnight accommodations, and many more. And after all the fun and excitement, they also take with them some basic understanding of the formation of these limestone caves when they depart them. In addition to being enjoyable, exploring the Jenolan Caves helps people to learn more about the environment in which they live and how and why it changes on such a frequent basis. Number 5. Seamless Robe of Jesus. From all indications, many ancient but hard-to-believe facts have been discovered, and many are yet to be uncovered out there. One of them is the Holy Gown of Jesus Christ, which is said to be the robe that he wore just before his crucifixion. Others include the Holy Sponge, the True Cross, a Holy Lance, and many other things. And I know what's on your mind. You want to know exactly what's left of it and where it is now. The robe allegedly worn by Jesus during or just before his crucifixion is referred to as the seamless robe of Jesus, which is also known as the Holy Robe, the Holy Tunic, the Coat, and the Honorable Robe, amongst other names. According to competing tradition, the robe has survived up to this point and is said to be in the Cathedral of Trier, the Basilica St. Denis, and several Eastern Orthodox churches, which includes a cathedral in Georgia. But first, let's do a little retrospective on the life of Jesus. The soldiers who crucified him, according to the Gospel of John, did not divide his tunic afterward. Instead, they decided who would keep it by casting lots. This is because it was knit in one piece without a seam, which is why it was called the seamless robe. Some of the first church artifacts do still exist today, and while the vast majority have been lost to time, items that are connected to Jesus Christ himself have received the most attention and study of all the remaining artifacts. The Holy Robe and other relics, which include the True Cross, were allegedly found by Saint Helena about the year 328. She left the Holy Robe to the Diocese of Trier, situated in Trier, Germany, as part of the distribution of the relics that she had found. Before the 12th century, when Archbishop John I of Trier had the altar housing the seamless robe consecrated, not much was known about the robe's past. It has had silk threads sewed to the fabric throughout its history, and to preserve it in the 19th century, it was covered in a rubber solution. Even though the preservation of the robe from one direction to the other has prevented research and examination, it is worth noting that the robe was found and kept after so many years. Number 6. Moai Statues. Have you heard of the mysterious Moai Island? The mysterious and remote island sitting in the middle of a vast ocean in an area where nobody travels, according to the 19th century French sailor and artist Pierre Loti. The island is covered with enormous grotesque statues that either have decayed or disappeared through time and is the creation of an unknown race. This little split of volcanic rock in the vast South Seas was named Easter Island by a Dutch explorer, Jacob Roggeveen, who first saw it on Easter Day of 1722. It's still the most distant inhabited spot on Earth, and over 1,000 statues, some of which are about 30 feet tall and weigh up to 80 tons, remain a mystery. But the statue makers are still very much alive. The sight of enormous stone statues were both serenely godlike and viciously human was almost unfathomable to early explorers. Judging from the look of things, one would say that the population of the island was too little, too primitive, and too remote to merit any praise for such works of craftsmanship, engineering, and effort. It's hard to understand how these islanders, who were completely ignorant of any form of mechanical power, could produce such astounding numbers. Moai sculptures were erected in memory of deceased chieftains and other prominent figures. They were set atop of some tombs for the persons that the statues represented. Since the Moais were designed to maintain the appearance of the person they represented, different traits were purposefully added to them. Additionally, the statues were purchased from a single group of carvers, so they were paid for. Whatever the buying tribe had in large amounts would be used as payment. Sweet potatoes, poultry, bananas, carpets, and obsidian tools are just a few examples of trading goods. Greater grandeur for the tribe would result from larger sculptures because they would be more expensive and serve as evidence that the tribesmen are resourceful and diligent enough to pay for them. Before the statue arrived at its final location, no eye holes would be cut, and in later years, a piece of red stone from the quarry would occasionally be placed on the statue's head to represent the deceased's long hair, which was a sign of mana, a type of mental power. The Moai would then be considered complete with coral eyes or a living face. They believed that the deceased person's ghost would always keep watch over the tribe and provide good prosperity. Number 7. Library of Celsus. Now, I know we've got a lot of great and decent libraries at our dispensation. However, to be honest, none of these would match that of the Great Library of Celsus. It was constructed in the 2nd century CE and was given the name of a previous Roman governor of the city. Today, all that's left of his once impressive structure is the library's striking facade, which stands as a mute testament to the city's prominence as an important hub for learning and early Christian research throughout the Roman era. At the very center of the city, to the left of the agora, close to its imposing arched entrance, the Celsus Library is located at the intersection of Caridi Street and Marble Road. The library is a good example of the kind of architecture that was popular during the reign of Emperor Hadrian from 76 to 138 CE, particularly in the east, when multi-tiered facades with masses of projections, recessed fake windows, columns, pediments, and statues were in great fashion. Ancient Ephesus, which is now in western Turkey, was home to a great library of Celsus, which was one of the most magnificent structures in the Roman Empire and a storehouse for over 12,000 scrolls. The library would be constructed between 114 and 117 AD as a magnificent tomb for Roman Senator Tiberius Julius Celsus Ptolemaios, the province of Asia's governor, who funded it with a sizable portion of his own enormous wealth. Number 8. The giant extinct upland moa of New Zealand. If you take a closer look at these giant claws on the screen, what do they look like? Does it remind you of something from any science fiction film you've seen? Well, it is fact and not fiction. A group of archaeologists at Mount Owen, New Zealand, would discover a bird claw with skin and muscles still connected to it in 1987 while excavating a cave there. The foot of the extinct moa bird, which was disappeared from Earth between 700 and 800 years ago, was eventually determined to be its origin. The Speleological Society of New Zealand was the fortunate organization to discover the extinct creature's claw. The foot belongs to a moa bird that no longer exists. There were once 8 different species of this bird, and they ranged in size from smaller than a turkey to larger than an ostrich, reaching heights of even up to 12 feet and weighing close to 500 pounds. This 3,300-year-old moa claw discovered in New Zealand provided evidence that the creature was a native to the country, and when posted online, the extinct bird's flesh-covered claw generated a lot of excitement on social media. People even commented that it looked like something from a science fiction film. Number 9. Transcripts from the Trial of Knights Templar. The origins of the Knights Templar can be traced back to the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem in around 1120, when King Baldwin II and the Patriarch Warmund tasked 9 Christian knights with guarding travelers on the routes leading to Jerusalem. They carried out this duty for 9 years before being promoted to a military order at the Council of Troyes around 1129. During the Crusades, they rose to the rank of elite combatants and were renowned for their refusal to flee or submit. The King of France eventually accused them, leading to their inevitable collapse, despite the Pope's vain attempts to stop it. Members of the Templar order in France were unexpectedly accused of heresy and imprisoned in 1307. Many in France, including their leader, were finally executed by being burned at the stake, while others received life sentences. The trials that followed the events in France did not all result in the same verdicts. According to historians, King Philippe amassed debts to the order after his battles with England and used the allegations to imprison its leaders and force confessions of heresy out of them via torture to the organization's wealth. Number 10. Zospeum tholussum. And here's another beautiful and intriguing creature that cave discoveries offer us. A stunning new species of tiny translucent snails would be found in one of the world's deepest cave systems in Croatia. It was discovered to only exist at depths of 3,200 feet, and the little creature is blind and is a member of the genus Zospeum. One of the 20 deepest caverns in the world is where the discovery was made in 2012. In the depths of the cave, only one individual of the species would be discovered. The following year, the animal was formally classified as a new species by German taxonomist Dr. Alexander M. Weigand. Initially, the voyage was just meant to measure the cave's depth. However, the team made sure to capture every animal specimen that they came across, because exploring such deep tunnels often results in the discovery of a new species. 8 of the 9 shells they had collected were empty, but fortunately one of them was not. They found a tiny 2-millimeter long land snail with a shell that is only a millimeter broad. It's a member of a group of land snails that only lives in caves. Its shell has an unusual translucent dome shape. Even in comparison to other snails, this one and its relatives move slowly, only a few millimeters or centimeters per week, and even then they frequently move in circles. Number 11. Son Doong. Ho Khan, a jungle man from Phong Nha, discovered Son Doong in 1990, which is regarded as the largest cave in the world in terms of volume and the largest cave in Vietnam. 2009 saw the formal survey and measurement of Hang Son Doong by the Howard Limbert-led British Vietnam Cave Expedition team. Merely gazing upon the amazing photographs of this largest cave in the world, one would be lost in wonderment. As a matter of fact, this cave has its own climate and clouds. This magnificent cave system in Vietnam is so enormous that a 40-story tower might even fit inside of its walls. To ensure the long-term viability of the area's extensive caverns and plant life, tours are only available to 450 people annually. Vietnam's Han Son Doong Cave gives out an unsettling green glow that makes it appear as though it might be on the edge of the earth. More interestingly, the cave is so large that a rainforest may be found inside the rock walls. The term Garden of Eden was given to the rainforest after Eden itself, and it is simple to understand why. The garden is a true rainforest and not just a collection of cave moss. Within the cave, trees reach heights of more than 100 feet, and even birds and monkeys can be found thriving amongst the trees, making up a whole entire ecosystem themselves. The discovery of the garden was unexpected, but in the greatest way possible. This cave in Vietnam is more than 200 meters high, 150 meters wide, and 5 kilometers long. It also has its own river, vegetation, and climate. And before you think of going there, you should know this. It takes a half-day trek through a beautiful jungle that's dotted with butterflies and a journey through knee-deep rivers to reach the mouth of the enormous cave, so it's not a trip for the faint of heart. Number 12. The Crone of the Catskills. If you want to become an adventurer, you better be prepared for the beautiful, the bad, and the ugly. The Crone of the Catskills story began as a casual Reddit post from a handful of unidentified hikers, but eventually developed into a fascinating historical mystery. The frightening effigy was discovered by hikers in 2016 as they were exploring tunnels in New York's Catskill Mountains area. A little wooden statue of a woman with a rope around her neck and nails hammered into her eyes was on its own when these hikers stumbled upon it. The second hiker took the cursed object home despite one of them objecting to taking it. Afterwards, a strange thing began to happen to these hikers. They began to experience some paranormal activity going on in their apartment. According to them, the statue kept on moving from its position, and one of them even reported not being able to sleep at night because the banging had kept him awake. When he opened the door after someone had knocked, he was shocked to find that no one was there, and after some consultations were made, they then donated the object to an occult museum, and it's now housed within. Number 13. A new Dead Sea Scroll. Israeli archaeologists reported the discovery of dozens of fresh Dead Sea Scroll fragments. These fragments, which bear a biblical text, were discovered in a desert cave and were thought to have been hidden there during a Jewish uprising against Rome approximately 1900 years ago. According to the Israeli Antiquities Authority, the shards of parchment contain lines of Greek text from the books of Zechariah and Nahum and have been dated to the 1st century AD based on the writing style. They're the first brand new scrolls to be discovered in 60 years during archaeological digs in the desert south of Jerusalem. The Jewish manuscripts were known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, were also discovered in the West Bank caves near Qumran in the 1940s and 50s and date from the 3rd century BC to the 1st century AD. They contain the earliest known copies of biblical texts as well as explanations of little-known Jewish beliefs. The approximately 80 new pieces are thought to be part of a group of parchment fragments that were discovered in the Cave of Horror in the southern part of Israel, which got its name from the 40 human skeletons that were discovered there during an excavation in the 1960s. These fragments also bear a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible's 12 minor prophets. The cave can be found in a secluded canyon about 40 kilometers south of Jerusalem, south of the West Bank, and slightly west of the Dead Sea. The items were discovered during an operation by Israeli Antiquities Authority throughout Israel and the occupied West Bank to find scrolls and other artifacts to stop potential looting. Number 14. Cave of the Crystal Sepulchre. The Cave of the Crystal Sepulchre is believed to be a place where the ancient Maya sacrificed humans. This significant archaeological site would be discovered in Belize and has produced a large number of Mayan items. Researchers say that they've discovered proof of ritualistic human sacrifice practices that date to the 3rd century AD in the Cave of the Crystal Sepulchre. The Belize Audubon Society claims that the ancient Maya believed that gods who governed agriculture and rain resided inside of caverns. The Maya believed that caverns were entrances to the underworld and called them the realm of fear or fright, because they frequently held the view that monsters, devils, and evil spirits guarded the underworld. Only priests and members of the ruling class were allowed to enter. It was obvious that the cave had been used for ritual sacrifice. Skeletons of people that had been killed sat amongst decorations, ritual artifacts, and even on their own altars. Only the bravest of those out there dare to enter. Number 15. Conspiracy Rocks. Caves can be a great place for strange geology to evolve because they're shielded from much of the Earth's weather and life for a long period of time, even if that time takes millions or even billions of years. Odd rocks and crystals are some of the discoveries which make people wonder, and some of which give believers in ancient aliens more confidence. For example, the Wolf's Egg iron, often referred to as the Salzburg Cube, was discovered in a mine in the 1800s. People thought that it was a meteorite, and many believed that because of its peculiar shape, machines had worked on it before it landed on Earth. Another example is the Klerksdorp spheres, which, while being 3 billion years old, similarly appear to have been sliced very accurately. Klerksdorp spheres are tiny, frequently spherical to disc-shaped objects that have been excavated by miners and rockhounds from deposits that date back 3 billion years and were mined by Wonderstone Limited close to Ottosdal in South Africa. In different books, many web pages, and popular articles, pseudoscientists and journalists have referenced them as unexplained, out-of-place artifacts that could have only been created by an intelligent being. However, other geologists who have examined these items have concluded that they are the product of natural processes rather than being made. With this, we come to the end of the video. However, it's not the end of cave discoveries. As time gradually unfolds, Earth's inhabitants are going to see more surprising discoveries in the future.